like you.
Hello, everybody. As you may be aware, the only reason I do these things is because I got the idea from Chris D'Elia, who just puts up a little graphic and then talks over it. But this week, Chris D'Elia's gone video. He's just sitting there talking, and somebody put a camera up. I'm not doing that because that's not good. However, it does explain the odd periods of silence that he has in his podcasts, because he in the video you can see he's actually just looking stuff up on his phone, which is fine. It means he's researching stuff. That's good. As he's talking, why not? So yeah, myself and Chris D'Elia have to part ways now, and that's okay. We live, we grow, we change, etc. So this one's about books. Books. I like books. I always liked books. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, my dad threw a copy of Crime and Punishment at me and said, "Here, read this," and I did. And it was great. I mean, I missed all the, to me it was a murder mystery, which is about half of the point of the book. Less than half. It's really supposed to be about philosophical positions and how your psychology is based on certain realities, regardless of how you feel about it. And I think he felt that the anarchist philosophy at the time was unproductive in the extreme. And he wrote this book partly to make fun of those kind of philosophies. And I suppose the idea of studying philosophy in general, which is ironic because now there's some philosophy classes about Dostoevsky. But yeah, I liked it. And then I started reading other books. And I guess I was exposed to grown-up literature, I suppose, at a very young age. So everything looked childish to me after that. I only wanted to read the heavy stuff from about 10 years old. Like, I went straight from Lady Bird into Dostoevsky. And it was grand. Like, nothing bad happened, I don't think. But people around me would be reading what they now call young adult fiction. Back then I don't know what they called them back then, but books designed for people early teenagers. I don't have any time for any of those. Complete waste of my time when I could be reading Solzhenitsyn or Tolstoy. And I think any kid, I mean, you have to aim high. I think when you're dealing with kids and their level and so on, you can't be. It's all right to pitch things to someone's level, but I think you should always pitch when you're even with grown-ups, when you're dealing with anyone. You should pitch slightly above their level always. And if they want to fall off the cliff, then that's their own business. But you should at least give them the opportunity by pitching things a little bit beyond their capabilities. That's just my theory. Anyway, I reblogged a post on my Tumblr 7 years ago now, and it was a photo of somebody's bookshelf where you can prominently see a load of Harry Potter books and Jodi Picoult. Right? I'll put a link to it in the description so you can see it. If you can muster up enough self-hatred to actually look at the post I'm talking about from 7 years ago, I'll put the link in the box. Now, this is what I wrote, and I'm reading it out verbatim so there's no confusion, and I'm not trying to change it or anything. Right? A photo of a bunch of Harry Potter books. This is 7 years ago. Here's the text. "I don't mean to be unkind, but I don't get how you can claim to love books and have a shelf full of Harry Potter and Jodi Picoult. Have we created a nation of people who honestly believe that reading is one of their hobbies because they own a copy of the Da Vinci Code? Where did we go wrong? Your homework. Burn your books. All of them. If you think they're good books, then burn everything else you have that you think is good. Don't give them away. Don't give them away or donate them. That's just moving the problem onto some other poor bastard. Now populate your shelves with William Faulkner, Vladimir Nabokov, Ernest Hemingway, Hunter S. Thompson, Kurt Vonnegut, Nikolai Gogol, Fyodor Dostoevsky, I spelt them wrong, Frank Kafka. And that's just for starters. I made a typo there. His name's Franz, not Frank. Come back to me for further recommendations when the fog has lifted from your brain." Alright? That's the post. I made that post 7 years ago, as I said. This week, or last week I suppose, that girl reblogged that post again with some dismissive text going along with it, right? Just saying, "Oh, this guy's an idiot," or with me. Fair enough. Like, I can see that. She has evolved her book taste, but it's nothing to do with me, right? She's evolved her book taste, but it's nothing to do with me. Whatever, fine. A bunch of other people took it upon themselves to try to take me down a peg, you know. So all week I've been getting loads of messages saying things like I'm an asshole and an arrogant prick and blah blah blah, right? Someone accused me of bullying, right? I reblogged a single post and I wrote my own comments on it just the once, and 7 years later I'm fielding 20 abusive messages an hour, and that makes me a bully. Like, I don't mind getting lots of abusive messages. Like, to be honest, 95% of them are just abuse and nothing else, which I suppose on the Tumblr machine means you might be onto something, because if there's no content in the message, if it's just, oh, you're an asshole, then clearly something is they've related to some part of it, but they have no idea how to mount an opposition to it. If there's no content in the message and it's just name calling, that's fine. You know, I want to click something in your head. That's the point of almost everything I write, is I want to create some sort of crisis in your brain that you might, stuff you haven't seen before, stuff you haven't thought about before. Like, if it was that much of a problem, somebody would explain it to me, or somebody would explain why they're upset. But 95% of them didn't. They didn't explain anything, or say it's just like, you're an asshole. I'm like, okay, good, it's working. You know, a few people, in other words, one, made the sensible point that my choice of reading for this person was very white and very male and very dead. And that's an accurate observation. That's a genuinely interesting and good point, right? It's been a problem. It's still a problem in my book collection in general. But, you know, there's no problems. There are only opportunities, right? So feel free to recommend any non-white, non-male, and non-dead authors in the comments section if you think I should read them, or if you really like thing, as long as it's grown-up kind of literature, you know. But yeah, William Faulkner, Vladimir Nabokov, Ernest Hemingway, Hunter S. Thompson, Kurt Vonnegut, Nikolai Gogol, Fyodor Dostoevsky, Franz Kafka, Frank. Every time I see Frank, I laugh. Frank Kafka, and that's just for starters. So yeah, they're all white and dead and male. There's no doubt about it. So I guess, I mean, I have some non-white, non-male, and non-dead authors in my books, but not really. It's less than 5%. That's not good, right? So help me out. Put some things in the comment section you think I might like. So I think at that age as well, they say that literature is it's a form of entertainment or escapism. Like, you read Game of Thrones and it's escapism, you know? I don't think that's good enough. Yeah, that's just not good enough. There has to be some appreciation for the form. I think literature, I've said this before and I'll keep saying it. There you go now. I'm going to keep saying it. Literature is supposed to challenge you. It's supposed to make you a better person, or at least want to be a better person. It's supposed to improve your understanding of the world around you, and maybe your understanding of other people. It forces you to think about something apart from yourself. So any of the great works of literature will do all these things. If you're reading something and it's like, it's just making you feel better about yourself, or like, what are you doing? Just keep pushing forward. You have to keep pushing forward. The only thing you know for a fact is change. That's it. Everything is going to change at some point. So you have to keep pushing forward. You have to keep moving, or you're going to become irrelevant and stupid. And you don't have to do anything to become stupid, because everything moves around you. You can keep your same ideas, your same opinions, exactly the way you are now, and you will be stupid. You have to keep moving. It gets more difficult the older you get, because the kids, like, I'm 41. When I was a teenager, I couldn't imagine being that old. I couldn't imagine what my life is going to be like, or how I would think. But you have to keep moving. And sometimes you have to talk to the kids. So I have to find some teenager somewhere and say, hey, like, what are you guys listening to? What are you into? What are you thinking? You know? Just to get plugged into the zeitgeist. If you want to look at it that way. So if you're reading something and it's just not doing any of those things, then it's not literature. And you have to stop pretending that it is. If you're going to read trash, just read your trash and be happy about it. But don't try to defend it as a valid use of your time. Don't try to defend it as literature. It's actively destroying your brain. And every time you try to think with that stupid brain, you're hurting everyone around you and the culture in general. There's nothing wrong with having standards. There's nothing wrong with using your critical thinking skills. Right? Critical thinking plus having standards is not elitism or snobbery. You have to flush that shit out of your head. It's making you bad. You have to try and be a better person. Just have standards and keep getting better the whole time. Theodore Sturgeon famously said that 90% of everything is crap. Yeah, 90% of everything. That means 90% of whatever you're into too. And me, obviously. Right? Like, none of this doesn't apply to me. Wherever you get that idea. I lived in California. I keep saying this because I don't want to introduce things that are California related as if they just popped out of the blue. I did live there for 6 years, which gives you a certain perspective. But I moved a lot. I moved 6 times in 6 years to different places in Southern California. I moved from Lake Elsinore to Murrieta to Upland Riverside, downtown Riverside, to Pomona to San Dimas. And every time I moved, it was in the high heat of summer because of the way the rental leases worked out. They were always up in summertime because it was pretty much based. I had friends and they were all going to college, and it was based around the college year, my rentals. And every time I brought over 1,000 books with me to America. When I went to America, all I brought with me was a few pairs of jeans, a few shirts, some bathroom supplies, and a jacket, and everything else was books. I had over 1,000 books, and that was just the ones I needed to take with me. So I had the Greek philosophy and the Russian stuff and all the stuff I needed with me. Right, everything else I left here. And that was a bloody triage, let me tell you. That was a painful process, leaving thousands of books here in my house. That was a genuinely painful process. Leaving. I was upset because I was leaving my dad. But everything else was fine, really. Except the books. Because I developed emotional attachments. Not to the physical objects, but to the information in them. Like, they're not worth anything. They're all crappy paperbacks. They're worth like $1 each. That's not the point. The point is the stuff inside them. It's just genius. Like I was telling my dad earlier, I honestly believe that if the whole world collapsed, you could reconstruct our entire civilization. At least our Western civilization. I mean, I have a few Eastern stuff, but not much. Our entire Western civilization could be recreated from just my book collection. And yeah, that's something to be proud about. Why not? So I had to move 6 times with 1,000 books up and down flights of stairs in the heat of summer, which, by the way, in California is very hot. It goes up to 40 degrees and more. 40 degrees centigrade. That's 1,000,000 degrees Fahrenheit for the Americans. But for Irish people, it's about 40 degrees. Lifting boxes of books up and down 3 flights of stairs every summer. Now, luckily, I made lots of friends very quickly over there who were able to help me, mostly Vietnamese girls and other different types of Asian girls. And at the sight of bunches of Vietnamese girls lifting boxes up and down 3 flights of stairs, I'm pretty sure I made more than one Ho Chi Minh Trail joke. But they don't care because I bought them pizza afterwards. So books were always, and they will always be, the most important non-human part of my life, and I regret nothing. I think it's good. It's a good way to live. Books are important. Like my favorite, like a kid. My favorite film director is Werner Herzog. And we went to see him in Dublin recently. And he said, people keep asking him, oh, how can I be an amazing director? You're an amazing director. And he says the same thing over and over again. He says, read books. He said, read. Read books, and that will make you a better director. And I have a quote written down here. I prepared for today. I have a quote written down here. He says, if you don't read, you may eventually become a filmmaker, but mediocre at best. Herzog himself said that he thought his books, he's written some books, and he thought those books would outlast his movies as great works of art. He says, because there's a production process involved in filmmaking which interferes with the purity of the original vision. He said, and again I have the quote written down here. I prepared another quote for today. He said, when you write, there's nothing in the way between your soul and the instrument that expresses it. Like a saxophone. Whereas with filming, you have your vision, and I guess it goes through all this stuff before it gets to the screen. When you write, it's just straight from your brain to the page, which is nice. That's what I like about it, to be honest. I mean, I'd like to be making movies as well, but it's so much effort and time, and It's very difficult. Like, you need actors and you need sets, and I don't have any actors and I don't have any sets. So unless I'm going to make my movie about a guy who sits in a room typing all day, I really don't have that kind of opportunity available to me. But when you're writing, you have every opportunity available to you, because all you need is a pen and an idea. Anyone can write anything. It's just perfect. It's all available. As long as you have a pencil and a piece of paper, that's it. You're done. You are now a writer. Well done. You, not all books are worth your while, I guess. There's like, one of the things that people didn't like about the thing I said to the girl with the books is that she said, "Oh, burn your books. That's not funny." Anybody who likes books wouldn't even joke about that. And I was like, God damn it, man, you need to grow up. You need to meet more people. You can joke about anything. What kind of a narrow-minded simpleton? You can't joke about burning books. Of course it's a joke. It's either that or take it seriously. I refuse to take that seriously. So there's differences of opinion, I guess, but don't tell me what I find funny or what I like to joke about. Philip Pullman wrote a book once about, he called it The Good Man Jesus and the Scoundrel Christ. And of course the title alone is designed to get people's backs up, And he said, of course he got a load of complaints, which is what he wanted. Let's be honest, you're going to write a book called The Good Man Jesus and the Scoundrel Christ, you're going to attract a certain attention. So it's what he wanted. And he said, he said it was a shocking thing to say, and I know it was a shocking thing to say, but no one has the right to live without being shocked. No one has the right to spend their life without being offended. He wasn't forcing anyone to read his book. He said nobody has to read it, nobody has to pick it up, nobody has to open it. If you open it and you read it, you don't have to like it. If you read it and you don't like it, you don't even have to shut up about it. You can write, you can complain about it, you can write to the publisher, you can write to the papers, you can write your own book. You can do anything you want, but that's where it stops. You don't have the right to stop him from writing that book. And you don't have the right to stop it from being published or sold or bought or read. And that's it. And basically, if really all you're going to add to the world is complaining, that's not very productive, is it? Go write your own book. That's better. That's the answer. If you don't like something I say, go say your own thing. Don't just whine at me saying, "Oh, I can't believe you said that." Oh, God, I live in a world where this has to be explained over and over to people. All the offended people. You should feel a deep sense of shame for inflicting your bullshit on everyone else. Oh, I'm offended. Oh, I didn't like that you said that. Oh, you're an asshole. Go do something about it. Don't be negative. I understand that you feel it's important to be offended. Offended people always feel it's very important not just to be offended, but that everybody knows how offended they are. And that's fine, but it's a waste of your time. You're turning into a negative person. It's just going to be an endless loop of stupid, cynical bullshit. Create something. If you don't like something, go do something about it. Write your own book. You don't just be sitting there saying, "Oh, God. Horrible." Just try and be funny, Try and be upbeat and... I don't know. I have a lot of opinions about books. And of course, a lot of those opinions are going to get into trouble, aren't they? A lot of the time I'm trying to be funny, but a lot of the time I'm also trying to be serious, and... there is a way to write a review of a book that's funny, and that's okay. Here's a... This is a review of Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence from the November 1959 issue of Field and Stream. Right? Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence review. Although written many years ago, Lady Chatterley's Lover has just been reissued by the Grove Press, and this fictional account of the day-to-day life of an English gamekeeper is still of considerable interest to outdoor-minded readers, as it contains many passages on pheasant racing, the apprehension of poachers, ways to control vermin, and other chores and duties of the professional gamekeeper. Unfortunately, one is obliged to wade through many pages of extraneous material in order to discover and savour these delights on the management of a Midlands shooting estate, and in this reviewer's opinion, this book cannot take the place of J.R. Miller's Practical Gamekeeping. That's it. Now that's a review. That's a brilliant review of a book. Right? I wrote a review of a book. Let's No, that's the wrong. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the clip so I can read it out. I wrote a review of a book called Helium, and I just checked before recording this, and it's still there. And the review, I'm going to link to it in the thing, and it's called. The book is called Helium. Let me just check it. I should have put it in the box before I started. Sorry. There it is. And in my review, I say I couldn't put it down. Right? That's just a little joke. It's supposed to be funny. That's all. It's not supposed to be clever or anything. It's just supposed to give you a little giggle. Some time ago, I joined a site called Shelfari. It's kind of like, it's like Goodreads. Before Goodreads there was Shelfari, and Goodreads took off in a way that Shelfari didn't. But it was a good idea, I suppose. You go on and you tell people what books you've read, and they say, oh, is that good, is this good? I don't know, it's kind of showing off, I guess, for what books you've read. But I have so little to show off about. I might as well show off about my books, right? An online book catalogue, I guess, where you can meet people who like the same books, right? They have reviews of every book submitted, and part of the review at the end was a ridiculously simplified synopsis, which I have now a blog based on that idea. But I took it as an invitation for some light comedy. Why not? So I went into the Microsoft Encarta College Dictionary, which I owned. I still own it. It's a really good dictionary, by the way. I know it says Microsoft in front of it, but it's a really good dictionary, very well laid out, very intelligent. And I just said the ridiculously simplified synopsis was an A to Z of all your favourite words. Right? It's just supposed to be like a little joke. Then I went into the history of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides, and the ridiculously simplified synopsis I wrote of that was Sparta wins. Right? Now, there you know, the Peloponnesian War, Sparta wins. So I just wrote down Sparta wins. That's your ridiculously simplified. It's 2 words. That's hundreds and hundreds of pages bounced down to 2 words, which I thought was brilliant. Now, after that, 2 days or so after that, I got an email from Shelfari, and it says somebody changed the page settings and somebody did something, right? They put spoilers on it or something. I don't know. They changed something anyway. Spoilers on the Peloponnesian War, which I thought was really, really strange. I can't tell you what happened in the Peloponnesian War because it might ruin the ending. Is it too soon for that? Too soon. This was the Peloponnesian War is in about 450 BC-ish. 400 BC-ish. It's 2,500 years ago. And it's too soon. They had to put a spoiler alert on it. Well, that's true. Then everything the Christians are doing today should come with a massive spoiler alert. Have you heard about Jesus? No, shut up, don't tell me. Don't tell me. I'm in the middle of it. You insensitive buffoon. Have you heard about how Jesus is going to save your soul through his death and what? Oh, he dies and resurrection. Oh, what the? You guys, you should come with a spoiler alert. I'm only up to the bit with the loaves and the fishes. I thought that was going to be his big, I thought that was going to be the climax of the thing. Loaves and fishes. That's amazing. He had like a slice of bread and 2 little fish, and he turned them into 1,000,000 slices of bread and 1,000,000 fish. That's pretty impressive. Like, that's pretty amazing. You're telling me now that that's almost irrelevant when you're thinking about all the things Jesus is good for. No, forget it, man. That needs to come with a spoiler alert. I don't know. I care too much. That's my problem. Somebody put down on Facebook, put down a positive review of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. They said, oh, this is good because blah, blah, blah. And I said, this is my response to that idea. I said, if you think your purpose in life as a woman is to find a man, then you're going to like this. And if you honestly believe that it counts as progressive because she's occasionally sassy about wanting to find a man, you're a moron. If you want to read proper 19th century romantic fiction, read Wuthering Heights. Dark passions, animal sexuality, genuine subversion of social norms, ice-cold revenge, corpse fucking, not literally, but you know, dashing babies onto rocks, ghostly apparitions knocking at windows, all of which goes completely over the heads of the people telling the story. I don't know how anyone can read Pride and Prejudice after reading proper literature, and I guess if you want to be spoon-fed Austen's warm diarrhea, I'm not going to stop you, but for Jesus' sake, don't go around thinking that it's good. Pride and Prejudice is what 19th century middle class airheads had instead of Twilight. So yeah, you can see how people would find me opinionated. I guess. And then somebody afterwards referred to doing a Barry. Doing a Barry is trashing some well-loved thing on Facebook for no reason. Using excessively violent language for no reason at all is doing a Barry. Alright, fair enough. I don't mind. But I do. I like books. I like them a lot. And when I talk about them, I get very worked up and I use very strong language. Because that's part of my charm. You learn things. You're forced really to get outside your head. And that's good. Because we live inside these heads and it's the only way you're going to get out of them is with art and literature. It's the only way you can get outside your head. Everything else happens with you inside your head. But when you read, you have to relate in some way to the hero or the antagonist or whatever. You have to relate to them and their motives. Otherwise you won't find the story interesting. No matter what it's about. It has to be in some way relatable. Like it's hard to care about a story where the bad guys are one-dimensional. Well, this, I mean, obviously it can backfire. If you're a really good writer, it can backfire. Like John Milton, he wrote a poem called Paradise Lost, where Satan is unintentionally sympathetic. You know, like he wanted to write with him as this bad guy, but he writes about him in such a great way that you find yourself relating to the character instead of being repelled. And I can only imagine, because John Milton was such a hardy Christian, that was unintentional. It's still great though. Or Emily Bronte's Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights again. He's portrayed as a vicious, horrible man, filled with revenge and hate, and nevertheless seems to set aflame the loins of female readers. I mean, even something as straightforward as The Human Centipede, if you've seen that movie, you could recast that as an expression of grief and suffering over the death of the Doctor's beloved pet dog, and his attempt to make the world pay for robbing of the pet, the animal. Like in that movie, there's a real sense in which the Doctor is the only character you can identify with, and that the segments of the centipede are expendable and interchangeable. Why not? Why not? Everything you have to relate to it. Like even in something as like that, you have to relate to it, and that means getting outside your head. And that's always good. It's always good to remind yourself that you don't have to live inside this stupid thing, inside your own brain. You can take it too far, I guess. You can take it too far. I've read some books that seem to be desperate to take it too far. Like there's a certain style of writing. And I have some of these books. There's a certain style of writing which is concerned with selling you spurious bullshit to conclusions, which Wikipedia diplomatically refers to as at odds from those developed by persons who know and understand the data. Right? That's all in inverted commas. At odds from those developed by persons who know and understand the data. Right? In other words, it's bullshit. Eric von Daniken more or less invented it with Chariots of the Gods, but people like Graham Hancock keep the shit fires burning with things like Fingerprints of the Gods. And we bought a book recently called Caesar's Messiah by Joseph Atwill, which is written in the same style. It's a style. There's certain things all these writers have in common, which I suppose is a good thing, so you can better identify the difference between quality research and free-form gibberish. So here are some things to watch out for. Number one, a lot of the time will be dedicated to the idea that the writer is being silenced by the mainstream. Right? This is what alerted me to the otiose nature of Rupert Sheldrake's science delusion. Right? Anybody who says they laughed at Galileo, right? The reason Galileo was right isn't because people were laughing at him. So if they make a big deal about the fact that other people are laughing at them or other people are trashing them, if they make a big deal about that, that's a sign that what they're writing is gibberish. Like Richard Dawkins doesn't spend any time saying, oh, there's a whole bunch of people trying to stop me from making this book. It's ludicrous. Now, number 2. Although he may have no qualifications whatsoever in the particular area the book covers, the writer will cheerfully gainsay the consensus opinion of qualified people as though the fact that they were qualified was a hindrance to the search for the truth. Right? This is like the Donald Trump logic. Like, you should vote for me into government because I'm not a politician. Right? And people respond to that. I mean, there's no explaining that. You know? Like, I know nothing about medicine, so I should do your operation to take your cancer out. That kind of thing, right? Graham Hancock's qualification is in sociology, and Eric von Daniken's only qualification is hotel management. And if you read his Wikipedia page, you'll see he even managed to screw that up. Number 3. I've done it like this. A lot of the chapters in these books will end with the question, isn't it possible that blah 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 blah? Or could it be that blah 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 blah? Right? And the next chapter will be written as if you have been convinced by the evidence and answered yes to those questions. When of course the answer is more than likely going to be no. The narrative of these books jumps straight from could be to is, without asking you. Well, it does ask you, but it doesn't. It just assumes your answer, so might as well not bother asking. And then it proceeds to other arguments that depend on those arguments being true. It's sneaky and dishonest. I don't like that. They give you this kind of shaky evidence for something and then say, isn't this possible? Isn't it at least possible? That blah blah blah. And then they carry on as if you said, yes, it's definitely true. The number 4 way to recognize these stupid kinds of books is solid, reliable evidence for mainstream theory will be interrogated to the point of brutality, whereas the flimsiest evidence imaginable for the outlandish pet theory would be happily and unquestioningly clasped to the writer's bosom. Here's an image for you. Sometimes an entire book can be dismissed with a simple observation. If you put nearly as much energy into critiquing your own position as you have the opposite arguments, you might have realized the world does not need this book. Now you know. Some books are just spreading poison into the world. And then once you have these ideas, your opening trick for everything should be, I could be wrong about this. But not stupid stuff has to be smarter than clever stuff. I mean, that doesn't make sense. It's just all rubbish. A waste of time. You know? Like, what kind of a person would, if you're trying to figure out, what kind of a person are you? Well, what's your star sign? And that's going to tell you nothing. I mean, it tells me something, but not what you think it's going to tell me. You know? So yeah, I like books. I like literature. I like good books. Reading better books will make you a better person. That's it. Like, not just in a wishy-washy, funny kind of a way. Reading better books will make you a better person. And that is what I'm going to leave you with. If you like this, tell your friends. This podcast. Like it and subscribe and all that business. If you don't like this, if you think I'm a horrible person and I'm pretentious and so on, tell everyone you know. Say, check out this pretentious ass hat. Blah, 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 blah. Don't say that blah, 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 but that's me parodying your recommendation. So yeah, if you hate it, tell everybody you know. And I am out.
Not like you.